right, is this just me or is this weird? This is today, folks, today. Left your screen, Barack Obama, the outgoing president of the United States, working with Democratic leaders to try to preserve and do everything he can to save his signature legislative achievement, the Affordable Care Act, what's become known as Obamacare, and Republicans led by Vice President-elect Mike Pence doing everything they can, working with Republicans to torpedo the thing. This just about, a little more than 2 weeks ahead of the inauguration. Awkward. But this guy never is. Doug Wead, presidential historian extraordinaire. Doug, it is wild. You have an outgoing president and an incoming one at loggerheads over everything from Russian policy, kicking diplomats out on the one part, another guy thinks it's a bad idea, ignoring the North Koreans, making a big deal of the North Koreans, the healthcare thing. I mean, I don't think I've ever seen anything like it.
Well, I can tell you, Neil, that it is common in history if you go back far enough. In fact, we amended the Constitution of the United States, and you know how cumbersome that process is because these transitions were so problematic. We changed it from 4 months to 2 months, so they're inaugurated in January to try to redress that. And when FDR was being passed the power from Herbert Hoover, it was Herbert Hoover did not like it. He didn't even show up to give Roosevelt the first tour around the White House. He had the Secretary of the Treasury do it. So it's not unprecedented, but I will say, as someone who loves and reads history, it's very disappointing for me to see Barack Obama stoop to this level. He knows how dangerous these transitions are because he himself criticized Bill Clinton for his transition and for what he did, the pay for pardon in the last minute. And Obama's got a chance to be a Nelson Mandela, a transcendent figure of history, and here he is captive of his radical base. It's disappointing.
The one thing that comes to, obviously, when they're from opposing parties, I can remember, obviously too young to remember the details, but Eisenhower handing off to Kennedy. Eisenhower was very leery of this young senator from Massachusetts who was going to come in and fill his job, and that he might not be up to the task. But there wasn't the degree to forcing issues, maybe the Bay of Pigs, but nothing to the degree that we're seeing now. Now you're right. Historically, there's always been some tension between opposing, presidents of different parties. But this one seems to put enormous burdens on the incoming president. When, let's say, on the Russian thing, couldn't he have just, that is, Barack Obama, let him know, I think it's a good idea. We punish the Russians for this, and I think it should involve throwing their diplomats out or something like that, because this is something that Donald Trump will likely reverse.
Yeah, it's, this is kindergarten geopolitics. You do not take on Russia and China simultaneously. Now, the Democrats have always tended to favor China. In 1996, there was the FBI investigation into money being funneled in the Democratic National Committee from China. So they've always tended to lean towards China in recent history. But if you're dealing with Russia and China, you don't do it simultaneously. And who's the most urgent? The most urgent need is China, because they impact our economy. Russia doesn't. So Trump's got to deal with China. He cannot take on Russia at the same time, but the Democrats seem to be pushing him into that. You're too soft on Russia, stand up to Russia. Trump's doing the right thing, trying to do the right thing, but there's Obama. Again, I go back to Herbert Hoover. He didn't like it. He tried to convince FDR to co-sign a joint statement on how to handle the Depression. But FDR was saying, hey, buddy, I won. You didn't win. I'm going to do this my way.
I remember when you were covering that firsthand. You were remarkable. It's always good seeing you, Doug. Thank you. Doug Wead, presidential historian. Always fun having you on. Happy New Year, my friend.
Thank you. Happy New Year to you.